Sometimes things are not going to make sense, and the only way to get through a dangerous looking situation is by a leap of faith. When we were staying at a hotel in Florida that God had brought us to live in for a little while, I got into a situation where my need was greater than any logical way to fix it or save myself. Before I explain, I will also share that this all started as a trust fall from God, where He asked me to take the little money I had and reserve 5 nights in a hotel room while we were in Florida. I was on the verge of being homeless, and before God told me to go to the hotel, He gave me a promise, and He said that He would be our endless basket of support, and that He would provide for us everywhere that He brought us, that He would be our home, we would not be homeless or go hungry, and that He would cover all of our needs out of His glorious riches. And that was my promise. And so for years now, I have had to draw from our needs out of my promise from God using my faith. Nothing else. And God has sent us the support that we've needed through a myriad of many ways, sometimes donations, sometimes mysterious amounts of money would show up in my account. I'd get business grants because God turned my blog into an actual LLC where I could qualify for things like that. And we were on our way to becoming homeless and had no way to survive, no one to help us, and no way to get through it all. And I wrote about this exciting and yet treacherous lifestyle that we lived for all of these years in a very vulnerable and transparent book called Naked Wings, which I have for sale on my website and on Amazon. But now that you got the backstory, so after we stayed at the hotel that God brought us to, my most dangerous and trustful ever, God brought us to this other resort hotel where we stayed for a while, and it was absolutely lovely, and I had some of the most beautiful encounters with God while I was there. But while I was at the hotel, things got a little scary, and I was in a really bad place for a moment. My bill at the hotel was nearly $3,000, and I was able to delay paying it in full until it was time to check out. I don't know how God did it, but He always allowed our room extension to be approved without charging me at that moment. I had to trust that God knew and that He would take care of every last detail, and that He wouldn't put us to shame, embarrass me, and that I wouldn't be in any trouble. I also needed miracle money to cover every continuous night and the food to feed me and the children. On top of all of those things, the Lord was preparing my heart to move across the country. In order to do that, because I had no vehicle, I had to rent a car to cover all travel expenses. As if that was not a big enough lake to cross, I needed the money to provide shelter for us, for our family when we finally arrived in Michigan. Needless to say, I was overwhelmed and in the most desperate place financially. It looked like the end of the road because there was no logical solution to surviving this moment. I had been praying frantically for the money that I needed to cover such deep needs. And I was also praying through the fears of all the bad things that could happen in such a delicate situation. I had about $1,000 towards the hotel stays that I already owed with no foreseeable way to get out of trouble. It was then, in the heat of the situation, in many prayers, that the Lord spoke to me a strategy. The strategy of the Lord seemed insane to me, completely ridiculous. He instructed me to take all I had and give out of my deep need to someone else. I basically felt like God was asking me to put my children on the altar and sacrifice them, because that's what, as a mother, it felt like I was doing. And it was terrifying. As if letting go of one lifeline in order to grab another one is what actually I had to do. I had to release what I had in order to receive what I needed. This move required bold faith and determined trust in God. It was like getting out of a boat and expecting the unsupportive substance of water to hold me up, as if it were as firm as the solid ground. The Lord reminded me of the widow who was given a financial rescue by using her faith to give all she had in order to receive the release of all that she needed. In 1 Kings 17:12 it says, "And she said, as the Lord your God lives, I have not a loaf baked, but only a handful of meal in a jar and a little oil in a bottle. See, I am gathering 2 sticks, that I may go in and bake it for me and my son, that we may eat it and die." For the first time ever, I was able to experience the worry and the risk that this poor widow may have felt. Imagine, not only was she depending on the little that she had to carry her, but she had a child who was depending on her. Not only was she risking her own life, but she was risking the life of a helpless child. Much like this woman may have been experiencing, this was such a huge step of trust and faith. I had to come to a place in my heart where I had to accept the death of an altar sacrifice. In my heart, I finally said, "Okay, God, I will choose to trust you. I hope that you will catch us as we take this leap of faith, and if we die, then we die. But if we live, then I will know that you are the Lord who saves me in my deep need." With my heart pounding within and a water full of tears running down my chin, I took all the money I had and I released it to God. The next day, I was given back 5 times what I had given, and the pressure of trusting God through the thundering fears was broken. I was able to pay my debt at the hotel, feed my family, rent a car, and travel across the country. God even was gracious to give us extra money for hotels for some extended time of rest from the financial faith testing. It was the manifestation of my hopes, much like what the widow went through. In 1 Kings 17:15-16 it says, "She went away and did as Elijah had told her. So there was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and her family. For the jar of flour was not used up, and the jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah." I honestly believe that the greatest sacrifice of faith is to give out of your need. The more the sacrifice costs you, the greater will be the release. Your deep need puts a deep release from the Lord's cup of blessings. Imagine how the Father God must have smiled at the way the woman decided to trust God with all that she had. It was a widow's offering that brought such a sweet relief and a rescue for her and her child. You may see a situation as a place like walking on water. You may be completely unable to support yourself, or so it may seem. But I pray that Jesus would show you such a deep and compassionate love as you take steps to trust Him with whatever He speaks to your heart. If God asks you to give out of your deep need, I pray that He would send you an immediate release of all that you need that will far exceed your hopes and expectations. If you would like to hear more about messages like these and keeping up with the live updates of our insanely scary and ever-changing faith walk of following God to live on only the support of His promise, then please visit my blog at diamondsfromthedust.com and check out the Flowers of Fulfillment page. This is a separate place where I share the deep details of our faith adventures, and I offer faith-boosting activations and motivational stories to help you see your promises fulfilled and prayers answered as well. It's a brand new thing, and I just started to build it in wonderful new ways, and it will only get bigger and bigger. Thank you for taking this journey with me. I love you so much, and I'm so thankful for you always.